Picture yourself in 2032 standing on the rim of Shackleton Crater at the lunar South Pole watching the sun hang forever on the horizon, like a frozen fireball, while below you in the permanent shadow, a massive six-armed robotic printer the size of a city bus glides silently across the gray desert on magnetic tracks, scooping up regolith with a spinning auger that looks like a demonic vacuum cleaner, and within minutes, the first layer of your permanent home is already spreading out in perfect 30-centimeter wide ribbons that steam gently in the vacuum as leftover moisture flashes away. And by the time you finish your 8-hour shift inside the temporary habitat, the entire ground floor is complete with load-bearing walls, 2 meters thick curved ceilings that flow like frozen waves, built-in storage benches that double as radiation shielding, and even the plumbing chases already embedded for water lines that will be recycled from your own sweat and breath. And when the printer finishes the main structure, it simply extends a smaller nozzle and starts printing the furniture, the kitchen island, the spiral staircase, the bookshelves, the bed frames, everything emerging from the same gray moon dust mixed with just 3% polymer that was manufactured on-site from atmospheric carbon dioxide, pulled out of the thin traces left by ancient comet impacts, and 48 hours later, you are drinking real coffee inside a house that has never seen Earth, that cost less to build than a Tesla, and that will easily outlast every building standing in New York or Tokyo today, because lunar regolith concrete gains strength for decades in the cold vacuum instead of cracking like Earth concrete does. And this is only the beginning, because the same printer never stops. It just rolls 2 kilometers over the next ridge and starts printing your neighbor's mansion, then the greenhouse, then the garage for the pressurized rover, then the school, the gym, the movie theater, an entire city, growing outward like a crystal, one perfect layer at a time. While back on Earth, the exact same technology has already made traditional construction look like Stone Age cave painting, because right now in 2025, the moment you are watching this video, there are over 400 large-scale construction printers operating on every continent, printing everything from luxury cliffside villas in Monaco, to emergency hospitals in war zones, to floating houseboats in Amsterdam, to entire apartment towers in Shanghai that rise 1 floor every 3 days without a single crane or scaffolding pole in sight. And the cost curve is collapsing so fast that analysts predict by 2030 the majority of new homes in developed countries will be printed rather than stick-built. And by 2040 the number will be 95%, because once the printer is on site, the marginal cost of adding another bedroom or another story or a swimming pool or a helipad is basically zero. You just update the digital file and keep printing, and the waste stream disappears, because if you change your mind, 6 years later you simply call the recycling bot. It grinds the entire wall back into powder, filters out. The old binder adds fresh polymer and reprints whatever new layout you want, meaning your house can evolve with your family, the way software gets updated instead of being frozen in time like every house built before 2025. And the environmental impact is almost too good to believe. Traditional construction accounts for 40% of global carbon emissions, 50% of raw material extraction, and 30% of landfill waste. 3D printing slashes all three numbers by 70 to 90%, because the printer only uses exactly the material needed with millimeter precision, and that material can be local. Sand desert dust, recycled concrete from demolished buildings, or even plastic pulled out of the ocean and turned into binder. And the energy comes from solar panels that were printed the day before, so the entire process can run on sunlight alone, and governments are starting to mandate it. Dubai now requires all new public buildings to be at least 50% printed by 2030. California passed a law giving massive tax credits for printed affordable housing units. India launched a program to print 10 million rural homes using village soil mixed with cow dung binder. Yes, cow dung. It works perfectly and costs almost nothing. And in Ukraine, after the devastation of war, mobile printers followed the front lines, printing unbreakable bunkers and civilian homes within days of liberation. And the strength is ridiculous, because there are no joints, no mortar lines, no weak points. A printed wall is one continuous monolithic piece that behaves like a single giant rock. Tests show these houses survive. Category 5 hurricanes with 200-mile-per-hour winds, direct hits from fallen trees, earthquakes up to 9.0 on the Richter scale, and even floods, because the walls can be printed with a slight overhangs and hydrophobic coatings that make water bead off like mercury. And inside, the living experience is completely different. There are no load-bearing interior walls, so every room can be huge and open with 30-foot curved ceilings that feel like cathedrals, built-in radiant heating loops in the floor, printed from conductive carbon threads, LED strips embedded directly in the ceiling panels that change color temperature from sunrise gold to midnight blue, acoustic panels tuned to kill echo. So your living room sounds like a recording studio, and air purification channels that run through the walls, pulling dust and CO2 and feeding it straight to the indoor greenhouse where tomatoes grow twice as fast because of the extra carbon. And when you want to sell or upgrade the house, doesn't lose value. It gains value because the next owner can instantly reconfigure the entire floor plan in a weekend without demolition. Crews or dumpsters, just a small mobile printer that crawls through the rooms like a friendly spider, rewriting walls. The way you rewrite a document, and this flexibility is why investors are pouring billions into the sector. BlackRock just launched a $2 billion fund exclusively for printed real estate because these buildings have higher resale value, lower insurance premiums, near zero maintenance, and infinite adaptability. And the moon dust connection is the part that makes your brain melt, because every single breakthrough that lets us print with lunar regolith on the moon is immediately licensed back to Earth companies who turn around and use it to print with desert sand in Saudi Arabia, volcanic ash in Iceland, coral sand in the Maldives, or even dried lakebed clay in sub-Saharan Africa, meaning the technology we developed to survive on a dead world with no air is now the cheapest, greenest, fastest way to house 8 billion people on a living one. And NASA's Artemis program has already booked 3 different printers for uncrewed lunar landings between 2027 and 2029. Their mission is simple: land, unfold, start printing a landing pad out of sintered regolith, so the next human crew doesn't blast dust everywhere when they arrive, then print roads, berms, radiation shelters, and finally the crew habitat itself, so that when the astronauts step onto the moon for the first time in the 21st century, their house is already warm, waiting, and decorated exactly the way Mission Control printed it, and the printer will stay behind, permanently becoming the colony's construction worker, growing the base every time new people arrive, until there are thousands of humans living in structures made of pure moon dust that are stronger, safer, cleaner, and more beautiful than anything steel and concrete ever achieved on Earth. And one day, maybe 50 years from now, when your grandchildren take a honeymoon trip to the moon, they will check into a cliffside lunar resort printed from the same gray powder under their feet. Sip champagne in a gravity 1/6 hot tub, look out through crystal clear windows spun from lunar silica, and never once think about the fact that every wall, every chair, every light fixture, and even the glass in their hand all came from dust that was old when Earth's oceans were still forming, because by then, printing with local dust will feel as natural as breathing air. And the insane reason your future house, whether it sits in Malibu or on the Sea of Tranquility, will be printed in 24 hours using moon dust technology, is that the universe accidentally scattered the perfect building material across every rocky world in the solar system in quantities measured in trillions of tons, and all we had to do was invent a machine patient enough to stack it one microscopic layer at a time until worthless powder became castles, cities, civilizations, and eventually home. No matter which planet you choose to call it, the construction revolution isn't coming. It's already printing, and the first ones to realize it will live in houses that people 1,000 years from now will still be walking through in perfect condition, whispering the same thing every time. How did they build this so fast, so strong, and so beautiful, with nothing but dust and sunlight? And the answer will always be the same. They finally stopped fighting nature and started printing with it.